So, welcome everyone to tonight's event at the Building Centre as part of our Retrofit 23 series. So welcome all. If you haven't been before, we are a hub for the built environment, so I hope you enjoy your evening here, and after the event itself, if you want to look at the Retrofit 23 exhibition, please feel free to stay around and do so. The focus is residential retrofit, with the heading for the exhibition towards deep retrofit of homes at scale. I'm Laura Broderick. I'm the Commercial Partnerships Manager here at the Centre. So we are just here to host and welcome. We're not participating in the talk. We've got a great panel of speakers and a chairperson to do that for us this evening. But before we start, a few housekeeping messages. If you could turn your phones onto silent, that would be much appreciated. And we don't have any fire alarms planned, so if there is, don't have any fire drills planned, so if there is a fire alarm, it will be for real. So if you can make your way out of the room and follow myself or John Bonning, my colleague, to the nearest fire exit, which is round to the right, that would be much appreciated. So tonight, for our Retrofit Meets panel discussion, we have three fantastic speakers on the topic of upskilling. If you've attended the events before, you know we take a theme to be explored through presentations and then with a Q&A afterwards. We have a chairperson here with us tonight who will introduce the speakers, but by way of introduction to our chairperson, we have Brian Berry here with us this evening. He is the Chief Executive of the Federation of Master Builders. So just a little bit about Brian for you. As I said, he's the Chief Exec of the FMB, the largest trade association for SME building companies in the building industry. He's also a member of the Construction Leadership Council, and prior to this current position, Brian was the Director of External Affairs at the FMB, and before that he worked at the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors and was Head of UK Public Policy there. Before that, he was a teacher at the Charterhouse Square School in central London, and he's a Freeman of the City of London and a director of the Tiverton Almshouse Trust in Devon. So I'm going to invite Brian up to the stage to lead you through tonight's proceedings. So welcome to Brian.
Laura, thank you very much for that, and a big welcome to this evening's event. And I'm very honoured and pleased to be able to chair tonight's session about upskilling as part of Retrofit. Obviously, exploring the need to upskill our workforce is absolutely essential if we're going to actually transform our existing building stock. And you're all familiar with the pressing need actually to meet the UK's legal obligation to deliver zero carbon by 2050. And we're not going to do that, of course, unless we tackle our existing homes. They contribute 20% of our carbon emissions. And also, of course, 85% of them will still be standing in 2050. So it's absolutely essential that we get on with the task of improving our housing stock. It's a huge challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity, particularly for small builders. The FMB did some work a few years ago now, which estimated that the annual market in terms of retrofit was worth over £6.5 billion a year. So massive opportunity there for small builders. But my question is, and something we're going to be picking up this evening, about who's going to do the work. And I'm not being flippant, because there is a skills crisis in our industry. We need an extra 225,000 people over the next 5 years just to meet current demand. And in terms of delivering net zero, we need an additional 335,000 people to come into our industry. So that's a massive challenge, particularly when there are skills shortages in other sectors. Add to that, of course, is the ageing workforce in the building industry. 25% of manual construction workers are over the age of 55. And then you add in, of course, the lack of diversity in the building industry, particularly on the tools. Just 2% are women on the tools, and that figure has not changed since I've been at the FMB. So there's a huge challenge there to diversify our industry, but also an opportunity. And this is important, of course, in terms of actually thinking about the standards in our industry. to make it more attractive. We have an image problem in our industry. We should be attracting people from different backgrounds, but we're not attracting sufficient people. And I would argue part of that is because anyone can call themselves a builder in this country, and that damages the reputation of professional builders. It means that consumers lose confidence. A survey we did just before the pandemic revealed that 32% of homeowners are put off having any work done to their home because they're worried about employing a cowboy builder. So on that bit, the F&B has been calling for the licensing of building companies. I think tonight also we need to touch on standards for retrofit, because I think there's still an ongoing discussion about the Powers 2035, how that applies to small builders. The Trustmark is developing its License Plus model, but these are the things I think will come up in discussion, hopefully, and questions from the floor. But as Laura said, we've got 3 excellent speakers here this evening. So I'm going to introduce each one in turn. They're going to speak for about 15 minutes each. And then at the end of that, we will have a Q&A session, so everyone's got an opportunity to take part. So without further ado, I want to introduce the first speaker, David Pierpoint. David is the founder and chief executive of the Retrofit Academy. David has spent over a decade addressing the skills and knowledge gaps in the retrofit sector. He works closely with government, industry and academia to deliver the Retrofit Academy's mission to train over 200,000 competent retrofitters by 2030. He sees the Academy as the driving force in retrofit skills and knowledge. And David, as I know, is a regular conference speaker and contributor to the media about decarbonising our housing stock. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this, David. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome, Brian. And we've been at this for 10 years, of course. In many respects, we've worked very closely together over the years. So it's good to see you all. I've already thoroughly enjoyed meeting Gunnar. And you'll see why in my presentation I'm so excited about meeting you. I've been talking about skills gaps and retrofit for a long time, longer than I probably should have done. And I'm not going to talk about a skills gap tonight. I'm going to talk about something new. It's the first time I've talked about it, so it's a bit rusty. You have to forgive me, but it's something we're calling the practical retrofit skills gap. And it's practical not because I'm going to talk about trades. I am, but that's not why it's called the practical skills gap. I want to start talking about skills gaps we can do something about. Okay, and I want to start solving some problems because I am sick to the hind teeth, or hind teeth, not sure, of talking about 27 million homes, and we talk about 200,000 retrofitters, you talk about 220,000 or 429,000, whatever it is. I'm sick of those numbers, absolutely sick of them never changing. And it's very much my life's work and our organisation's focus to try and do something about it, but we do want to do something about it, not keep talking about doing it. A little brief introduction to us as an organisation. Who's ever heard of us? Oh, that's nice to know. We are a community interest company. We're based in Stafford, which is in the Midlands, for those of you who've never been north of Watford. It's, as Brian knows, I came into this world when I was in the world of sustainable construction and events, actually, and exhibitions and things like that. And I was headhunted to run something, a European programme in Stoke-on-Trent, Centre of Refurbishment Excellence, it was called, CORE, and that's how Brian and I first met. So I've been at this for a long time. The Retrofit Academy was set up after CORE closed over 7 years ago now. And it was not even a dream that the sort of achievements I'm just about to list off would be delivered by us. It was a dream. And to be talking about training 200,000 people, whilst it's a bit bloody depressing that we're still talking about it, we're actually starting to make a dent in it. Any idea how many competent retrofitters we've trained? I want to throw a number. 2,000. Okay. Wow, that would be brilliant. It's over 5,000 actually. It's over 5,000. It's closer to 6,000 now. We're fortunate the government keeps throwing funding at us, and we keep delivering at scale. So it is remarkable. I find it, I still pinch myself every day that we've done that, but we have. I can't stress enough, it's not just the number, it's the competent bit. Okay? There are way too many people historically in this sector who are not competent. They're just not. It's what Brian's talking about, incompetent builders ruining the reputation of competent builders. It's exactly the same in this space, and actually the government used to sponsor that, if we're honest about it. There was government-level sponsorship of poor practice, and so we have an inheritance of an industry that wasn't fit for purpose. We have standards, and we have Trustmark, and all those things because things used to be really, really bad. And you shouldn't ever have allowed those people into your homes. I hope you didn't. What you need are people that you are happy to have in your homes, that we are happy to, confident that they're going to do a good job. So it's for those reasons we call ourselves the driving force in retrofit skills and knowledge, or knowledge and skills, as it says there. And our vision is lovely, isn't it? We want every home in this country to be warm, healthy and low carbon. We use those three bits at the end, advisor. People talk about energy, and that's really important. Talk about saving money, that's really important too. But healthy and warm, we don't tend to talk about enough. There used to be 3 million people in this country in fuel poverty. That was before energy bills, what they've done now, doubled. That number is, I don't think the government even reports on it at the minute, because it would be an absolutely scandalous number. So we're not just tackling climate change through retrofit, we're doing something about something that really shouldn't exist in the second decade or third decade of the 21st century. People living in cold, drafty, mouldy homes. Yeah. So what we're primarily focused on is large-scale retrofit. And you heard of the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund? Anyone? This is the government's initiative to try and get the world of social housing retrofitting at scale. We're on wave 2.1 of it at the minute, and as this press release says here, the government is investing 778 million into 107 projects in wave 2.1 of the SHDF. And the social landlords, so they're putting their own money into. So it's actually around about a £2 billion programme. It's not the first time that policymakers have had big ambitions. Brian, do you remember how many billions of pounds the Green Homes Grant was to bring in to the sector? Remember that number? Sorry to put you on the spot. I know we probably sniggered at it when we saw that was meant to be £3 billion in 6 months. I remember, and funnily enough, they couldn't spend it. And funnily enough, they're not going to spend that either. These are just policy headline numbers that make ministers look really, really good when they announce them. The reality is you can have as many ambitious policy objectives as you like, but when, as Brian pointed out, we have known skills gaps, without doing 27 million retrofits, it ain't going to work. And the evidence for that is in the previous schemes. So there's a good friend of mine, Maxine Narborough, who runs the Greater South East Net Zero Hub. She is incredibly frustrated. What's she saying? Incredibly disappointed. That's because her job is to deploy large amounts of public funding to drive retrofit, and it doesn't happen for one primary reason, is we don't have the people to do it. Okay? That graph in the middle, don't worry about the detail of it, okay? The blue bits at the bottom are the existing workforce that we've got. There's about 200,000 people employed in the repairs, maintenance and improvement sector. And as Brian says, it's getting smaller every year. People already work in the sector because they're all getting old. And we're not good at bringing people in at the other end. We're just not. It's an unattractive sector for most people to work in. You want to be an external wall insulator? Well, you've got to like working outside in cold weather and at the minute endure feast or famine conditions from government funding. Well, there are better career options for most of us. So that's why that number's shrinking. And then all the colourful bits at the top, this is taken from Russell Smith's work, National Retrofit Strategy work. All those bits are the additional people we'd need to deliver on the policy objectives, and the ones that are in place at the time, they're roughly the same as we've got now. So don't worry about the detail, but it's getting bigger and bigger every year. The colour blocks are getting bigger. Why? Because we've got an unmovable deadline. 2050 is when I think it's 2048 now, actually. It's not getting any further away, is it? Yeah. Number of homes that we need to retrofit is not getting any smaller. It's still 27 bloody million. Yeah. So we're running out of time. We're going to need more bodies. Now, the government will tell you technology will solve everything. It's all going to be delivered through off-site construction. Off-site construction has been around since the 1950s, and it's never changed the world yet. So we need a lot of people. We need a lot of people with a lot of skills. And I want to start talking about this practical retrofit skills gap. Now, I'm going to talk about space, because I love space. It's so cool. The Apollo program, okay? What was their mission? What was the mission of the Apollo? What did Kennedy commit them to doing? Who knows? Come on, someone must be a... Get to the moon by... Do you remember he put a time scale on it? He said by the end of the decade. So in 1961, President Kennedy said they've got to put a man on the moon by 1970, by the end of the decade. He had absolutely no idea how they were going to do that. And some really, really clever people created a roadmap. And they said, right, okay, well, we can't put a man on the moon tomorrow because we haven't got a rocket for a start. How do you put a man on? How do you just about got a man into space by 1961? They focused on the next challenge. Okay, so they had a vision of where they wanted to get to, and then they had a series of steps as to where they wanted to get to. So step one was, can we launch the rocket? Step two was, can we launch the rocket with people in it? Step three was, can we test I can't remember, but it's all the bits, you know, can we test a lunar module? By the time they got to Apollo 8, I think it was, they got to the moon, but they didn't land on the moon. They went round the moon, and then they came home, and they managed to do it safely, yeah? So they were doing practical rocket science. I want us to start doing practical retrofit skills gap work. And I don't want us to focus on the 429,000 people. I don't want us to focus on 2050. I want to focus on what we need now, right? And that's our equivalent of Apollo 7. Apollo 7 is the first time the thing took off. Yeah? I want us to be starting to do that, because once you do those hard yards, and once you start to really get motor in us, and I think the 5,000 weave train surely is a start of sorts, you know, before long, we'll have our buggy on the moon. So cool, buggy on the moon. And we'll be doing all sorts of cool stuff. And those numbers that seem so scary now won't seem so scary then. So the question is, what's our Apollo 7? What's our mission? And to work this out, we hoped that we could find excellent government research that would tell us how many, if I'm going to do a quiz here, how many external wall insulators do you think there are in this country? In England? Anyone have a guess? And don't worry, you can Google it all you like, you won't find anything, because nobody knows, okay? Another question. How long does it take to install an external wall insulation system? Nick Nelbo, you may not answer. Ah, come on, someone be brave. How long does it take?
On an individual house?
On one house?
2 weeks. Yeah, a week.
Okay, yeah, they're both valid answers, and then they were wildly off. Okay, and how many people does it take to do that, on average? 4. Yeah, not a bad estimate. So we would have guessed roughly those sorts of numbers, but the problem with guesses is they don't go down very well when you start to build data models. So we did a load of research with the contractors who are delivering all these SHDF programs and lots of their supply chain to try and establish those sorts of things and build some consensus, because if we've got averages that we can rely on and timescales we can rely on. The government's SHDF program, as I said, has 236,000 measures in over the next 2 years. Right? And they're all through projects. So if we can break down those projects and figure out what's being delivered where, when we've got these industry consensus metrics, we can start to say, well, okay, well, we broadly need this number of people. We can't say with a degree of certainty whether we've got them or not. I don't think we have. Someone who knows a lot more about the EWI sector than I do reckons there's 180 EWI installers in Wales. Okay? I don't know how many there are in England, but there ain't enough, are there? So we built this consensus model, and I'm going to finish the presentation by sharing the results with you of that. So in terms of the PAS 2035 professionals, the retrofit coordinators, assessors, advisors, and Gunnar's going to become one, which I'm really excited about. This is what those contractors are reporting back to us. It's what they're finding. So there's sort of people who are employed by them, which isn't many, actually. Lots of people they subcontract to, and freelancers they use. So we asked them about all of those things. So what this graph shows, basically red is really bad, like acute shortage, and that sort of orangey salmon colour is pretty bad. There's nowhere near enough. And in each case, you can see there's hardly anyone saying that in any of those modes of employment that there's enough of these people to deliver the projects that they currently have. Right? Now, the good news is, I think we can fix that really straightforwardly. If we're training at scale, we're training, this year we'll have trained around about 1,000 retrofit coordinators, probably about 300-400 retrofit assessors. Other people are training them too. So I think we can begin to plug those gaps if we can get them into the right roles with the right employers. So I'm not too scared by that one. This one scares the heebie-jeebies out of me. Okay, red is really bad. Orange is pretty bad. There's no green on this. There's just bad. Okay, so this is people saying to us that particularly with air source heat pumps and any form of solid wall insulation, there are acute shortages or very significant shortages. Okay, and this, of course, is people who are also saying to their clients, we'll deliver you this program in the next 2 years. They work with us because they know they don't have the labour force to do that sort of scale. So we've got skills gaps everywhere. So what do we need to do? We need to get practical, and to do that, we need to assess where the problems are worst and where the need is highest. And this matrix shows you effectively, all from the research we've done, across the bottom, it's the demand for the measures. So how many of these things are we meant to be delivering over the next couple of years? And on this axis, it's the perceived degree of that skill shortage. So if you're in that red box, top right, that's where the focus needs to be. So those ones are there, and we've got to get on with it. And then around the trades, the primary measures that are being installed are air source heat pumps, solar PV, and lots of forms of insulation. So we've got to do something about that. So by getting practical, I'm talking about addressing those issues first, and addressing the trades and the professions side by side. Because there's no point having a load of managers if you haven't got people to do the work. Nick, wouldn't get much done, would we? So I'm just going to conclude by talking about a few of the things that we're doing. I won't dwell on this long, that are going to help with that, address those problems. And it's in two levels. One is the capability bit. So with the existing repairs and maintenance sector, how do we help it upskill? How do we help it get to grips with retrofit, start doing it right and at scale? And these are the things that we do. So we have a suite of qualifications and courses. We developed those from scratch. We developed some of them when they were deeply unfashionable and there was no market demand. It's a good job we did. We also, because we're a CIC, we reinvest the profit that we make from that into developing the next set of courses that are needed. And those courses are in line with those needs. So, a big focus on external wall insulation. And there's a huge, any architects in the room or architectural technologists? Great, brilliant. We really, really need you, right? I could find any of you 10 jobs tomorrow, seriously. And that course that we're developing is an upskilling course for architects in particular to get you comfortable and conversant with retrofit if you're not already. But there's a huge, huge need for more retrofit designers. The stuff up here, what we call workforce development planning, is how we work with those contractors and those employers to build their workforces. We want to take a long-term view towards building their workforces and getting them working with a supply chain. This is what we call a personal development plan. It's laying out for an individual who has some skills and some knowledge what the competency levels they need to get to in each particular discipline in order to achieve their potential as a retrofit professional. Don't worry about what that says. It's the personal development plan competency framework that's important because they've got to be competent. And that's a big new initiative from us. The second thing, and the reason I'm so pleased to have had that chat with Gunnar, we've got 200,000 people in the sector. We know we don't have enough to decarbonise a fraction of the housing stock. that we need to. So we've got to be bringing people in from outside the walk. You should be a speaker. You know, he's a former, used to work in a city and has decided that retrofit is for him, and we need tens of thousands of people to make the same decision, not all to leave the city. I'm sure that would be really bad, but other career options that are more attractive at the moment than retrofit is. So lots of people to make that decision. But to do that, we've got to give them access to high quality training and funding to help support that and reduce the cost for that. We've also got to make it really clear that there's brilliant jobs and opportunities at the end of it, never end. And this is our Retrofit Careers Hub, which is like a permanent careers fair for the employers that we work with, and they advertise lots and lots of jobs there, and there's all sorts of sort of careers guidance and advice that goes into there to provide that front door to the sector. Those are the sorts of things we're doing, but you know, there's still a long way to go. But I hope if you just take one thing away from what I've said tonight, it's this sort of let's get practical about this. Let's stop having events a bit like this where we talk about doing stuff. Let's do them because we can and we will. Thanks for listening.
David, thank you very much. That was absolutely excellent. And we'll want to come back about the practical skills gap, about getting on and doing the work. So, but for the time being, I want to move on to our second speaker, Stuart Gadsden, who is the commercial director at the Kenza Group, a former installer customer of Kenza's. He joined the business in 2015, and he brings a wealth of renewable experience, both in academia and in practice. Long-standing member of the MCS and industry stakeholder working group. So Stuart, welcome for your second speech. Thank you.
It's great to be here. Thanks for the welcome. Hopefully what I'm going to present dovetails nicely with what David's done, because I'm going to focus a little bit on one aspect that was in the top of David's graph, which is heat pumps. I'm going to cover an introduction to the Kenza Group, because I suspect most people probably don't know who Kenza are. We are one of the sponsors of the exhibition upstairs, and as Laura said, it's really good, and I think everyone should have a look at all those projects. It's very inspiring. There's a couple of Kenza things up there, but you know, just all the projects that are up there, I agree with David, we can do this. We all have to believe we can do it, and we can definitely do it. So a brief introduction to the Kenza Group. The challenge, some of those numbers that David's been talking about, just so we all see it. Talk about what people might think is a typical ground source heat pump install, and hopefully I can challenge that and put up our vision of what we think we could do with ground source heat pumps in a street by street approach to really actually go big. You know, there's no point tinkering around the edges with this. We've really got to go big. How we are currently working with the supply chain to try and address some of the practical skills that we have a shortage of, and what we are trying to do to make sure we can install ground source heat pumps at scale. A little bit of a case study just so that you can understand that we are doing this. We can do it tomorrow. And then finally a couple of my points to conclude with. I think we all know that heating, cooling, domestic hot water in buildings is about 20% of all the UK carbon emissions. And you know, that's at the moment about 7% of that heat is coming from a renewable source. So we've got a long way ahead of us. David was good at chucking questions out. I'm not going to chuck too many questions at people, but we are still installing about 1.6 million to 1.7 million gas boilers a year in the UK. And if we don't change that, we are still going to be emitting lots and lots of carbon. The number of heat pumps we're installing in the UK at the moment is between 40 and 60,000, depending on who you chat to. So if we go with about 50,000 heat pumps a year, 1.6 million gas boilers, we've got to flip that, because we've got to try and get to 600,000 heat pumps a year by 2028, which is about 4 years away. So that's a massive thing. If we just go on the ground source heat pump, which is what I'm focused on, it's about 6,000 ground source heat pumps a year we're doing in the UK. So it's really small. And they're all the numbers that David was chatting about, you know, all these millions of homes and non-domestic buildings that we need to target. 20,000 homes a week, 1,200 non-domestic buildings a week. And the clock is ticking, and I can tell you at the moment, as much as I would love to, Kenza's not installing 20,000 homes a week with heat pumps, and nowhere near it. So there's a massive challenge ahead of us. Some of my slides have now gone in a funny order. So let me get the slides as we go. Here we go. So this will be fun. So the Kenza Group structure, as you can see there, Kenza Group was actually formed back in 1999, and Kenza Heat Pump is the manufacturing arm of the business. It's based down in Truro in Cornwall. Lovely part of the world, not that close to anywhere else, but if you do happen to be passing there, please pop in. Brand new factory that was opened just at the start of lockdown, which also perhaps wasn't great timing, but we've now got capacity to make 30,000 heat pumps here in the UK. We are the only UK manufacturer of ground source heat pumps, and all we do is focus on ground source heat pumps. We believe they are the best technology with the lowest carbon and the lowest running costs, and that's our sole focus. Back in 2013, Kenza Contracting was formed, and this is to look at the design, supply and installation at scale. So we don't get involved in one-off individual houses. We want to get involved in large new build housing estates or retrofit housing estates or large non-domestic projects. And the reason it was formed back in 2013 is we sold 200 heat pumps to a social housing landlord. They went out to their installer base and said, someone's just got to come and install 200 ground source heat pumps, and they all started running. I reckon some of them are still running at the moment, and they don't want to do ground source heat pumps because we've got all these gas boilers we can fit. We know what we're doing, it's nice and easy. So at that point, Kenza stepped up and went, it's a bit of a change to be a manufacturer of a white box to now be the guy who's going to design it, install it. But we've learned a heck of a lot in that journey, and hopefully that's some of the lessons that we can help as we go forward. And the new kid in the block, if you like, is Kenza Utilities, that was formed in 2018, and that's been set up to actually fund the infrastructure, own that infrastructure, and effectively try and get a transition so that we can move away from the gas network everywhere, and maybe we can have a ground source network everywhere. And the lovely thing is, there's two companies I haven't mentioned at the top there, Legal & General and Octopus Energy, two household names that I'm sure everyone's heard of them if you haven't heard of Kenza. They've invested now £70 million into the Kenza Group because they believe in what we're trying to do. They want us to get out there, get this infrastructure installed. They want to own this infrastructure, and they realise that we've got a massive task on our hands, so it's great to have them funding us. We'll now work out where the next slide is. This is good fun. Guess where the slide is? I should have probably checked this before we came. So I need to now get my thought process. Typical ground source heat pump install. Where's that one? It's not there, so that's fine. So the typical ground source heat pump install is, I think, what everyone would imagine as I click, so I get this to the next slide, would typically be one large house or one large non-domestic building, might have Kevin McLeod next to it from Grand Designs, although he's not so interesting now because it's old hat. And someone would have loads of land, and you'd put one ground source heat pump in, you dig up your loads of land to put one slinky array in, and everyone's happy. And that's great. And, you know, Kenza Heat Pumps sold lots of heat pumps into that market, working with one-off individual homeowners and one-off individual installation companies, and that's great. And we will continue to do that. But at the moment, there's only 1,500 MCS accredited installers in the UK for heat pumps. MCS is a microgeneration certification scheme, and that's how you get your quality stamp for heat pumps. So those 1,500 are going to struggle to do 20,000 homes a week and do it at scale. So we need to continue doing that, and I'm not saying we shouldn't, but what we're all about at Kenza is trying to get to that mass market. Our mass market, there's another slide missing, but it's bringing us onto this one. So our mass market approach is that what we want to do is create the 21st century equivalent of the gas network. So at the moment, we have lots of gas pipes buried underneath the ground. They're plastic pipes. They actually carry quite a dangerous substance. They're quite flammable, gas. What we are saying is, instead of having plastic pipes with gas that go into every property, we could have plastic pipes under the ground that is actually a ground array. So we can drill boreholes everywhere. Those boreholes, and it doesn't just need to be boreholes. We can link in with waste heat, you know, cooling from buildings, cooling from data centres. In London, we've got the London Underground with lots of waste heat. So it doesn't just need to be boreholes, but it's an infrastructure that's effectively an ambient loop. It's a low temperature. You've got pipe fluid running in that pipe work anywhere between 0 and 20 degrees C. But effectively, that is all designed and installed by a utility, because that's what we're used to at the moment in the gas network. If you get a gas boiler in your home at the moment, that you don't expect the gas installer to know how to design the gas network. He just knows it's a gas network, and it's going to be there, and he can fit his boiler into your property, and it'll all work. So there's no reason why we couldn't do that. We had to transform our cities and dig up roads and everything back in the 50s and 60s, as we put that technology in. There's no reason why we couldn't do it today. And that's part of the reason why Legal & General and Octopus have put lots of money in, because they believe that this could be the future for us. Then in each property, you just have a white box. That white box is now a heat pump. It was a boiler, but it can provide and will provide 100% of your heating, 100% of your hot water. You buy your energy from whichever energy supplier you want. There's loads of electricity companies out there. Go and buy whoever you want from, and then you just pay a standing charge because you've connected onto the network. That's much like we all do today with our gas bill, and that's the standing charge. That if you pay that for a long term, investors like Legal & General and Octopus and other financial institutions, they get their money back in the long term. So this could also be done without necessarily requiring lots of government funding. So that's our vision. We know we need to move away from doing one house at a time. It's not going to get us there. We need to think big. This is the scale. This is Ken's vision. We've promoted it out there. We're out chatting to MPs. The good news is we're doing it. I'd like to say we're doing it on this grand scale, and we're doing private retrofit homes everywhere. We've done a small project in Stedians and Cornwall, which is 50 houses, and it is in the private sector, but the vast majority of what we're trying to do is show that it works, and we're working in the social housing sector, working with councils and housing associations, and we're working with the new build developers. So if I find, here we go. So how are we actually doing this today, working with the supply chain in order to try and, take this to the scale? So the first thing is design. Every good project starts with the design. There's horror stories out there about heat pumps. I've seen many of them, unfortunately, with my own eyes, but usually they start with, this system hasn't been designed correctly. We haven't understood what the brief was. We haven't understood the specification. In this country, we have got lots of M&E consultants. I speak to them on a daily basis, and I'm not saying we don't need more, but a lot of these skills here, they can already do. We should be able to work out exactly how much heat we need in our buildings, whether that's a small one or a large one. If it needs cooling, again, small building, large building, how much annual heat do we need, how much annual hot water, and all of that stuff can be sized and done correctly, so that actually within a ground source heat pump installation, the only specialist bit is the ground array design. We could do with a few more specialist installers, specialist designers, but more of them are coming. And effectively, Ken's Contracting is setting ourselves up there as we are the specialist installer that can take care of all of this for you and make sure that that ground array design, if we've got all that other information from our set skills in the UK, we can put a design forward that is sustainable and is going to last for hundreds of years for you. Then the next part in the supply chain, if I can find it, is borehole drilling. So once we've done the design and everyone's agreed it, the next part of the process is for us to actually go and drill some boreholes usually. Why typically boreholes? Because if we're doing this at scale, there's not enough land to put lots of plastic pipes just 1 metre below the ground. So we can do this at scale with borehole drilling. That's an example. That's a real site where we've installed heat pumps into a block of flats. You can see we can take drill rigs close to existing buildings and do the work. There's lots of drilling companies out there that are on the British Drilling Association membership, so they're working to tried and tested industry standards. What do borehole drillers want? How do we get more people into that supply chain? They want certainty. They want to know that there's going to be ground source heat pumps. And it's lovely having a target of 600,000 heat pumps a year by 2028, but to encourage these borehole drilling companies, they need certainty that ground source heat pumps are going to be part of that, and that's not just a number that's been plucked out of thin air that we can work to. But we've got drilling companies, drilling contractors always on the phone to us at Kenza because they know how many heat pumps we're installing. They want to do this work. They're good at this work, but they're very good at just drilling holes. They're not a ground source heat pump installer, but they don't need to be. They just need to be very good at drilling holes to a design that someone else has done, putting the pipe work in it, make sure it's going to hold pressure, and then they leave. Because then at that point, what we end up doing is bringing in the next. That one's gone as well, never mind. The next one is our headering and trenching. So headering and trenching, so you drilled all your boreholes, you've got 2 pipes sticking out the ground. That's lovely. How are we going to connect the boreholes together? You need someone to come along and dig some trenches. That's not that skilled piece of work. Again, there's ground workers out there. There's lots of ground workers. Again, we could do with more ground workers. You know, there's a lot of skill shortage across, but a ground worker is someone who can follow the drawing and dig us a trench in a straight line to connect that borehole to that manifold back to the building. And then at that point, we need the guy who can, or woman, guy, I mean generic term, who can then put that plastic pipework in that trench. And that plastic pipework in the trench is exactly the same as your mains gas pipework and exactly the same as your mains cold water pipework, HDPE pipework, and it's electrofusion well connected. So there's lots of people out there who go, I don't know how to fit a ground source heat pump. No, but you probably know how to do one part of that ground source heat pump installation, and you probably know how to do it very well, and we just need them to understand that our work exists, and there's work for them in here, and they can come and install the next part of the infrastructure. So once we've done all that ground array infrastructure outside, the next bit that we move on to is the internal installation. That's a standard Y-plan installation for anyone that's really interested in heating and plumbing. And if you've got a boiler system at home and it's not a combi boiler and it's got a tank, that's basically what you've got at home. And we've got about 80,000 gas-safe companies in the UK that can do this, with about 140,000 gas-safe engineers that can sign that all off. And then they'll have other plumbers and labourers working with them who can put radiators in the wall and put pipework in the wall. So we're pretty good at doing that. You know, there's 1.6 million going in at the moment in the UK, so we must be doing something right in that market. None of them can install heat pumps, do they? Sweet. Yeah, but they don't design the heat source. So in the heat pump, if we change this to a heat pump, they still don't design the heat source if we can get to this mass market and someone's done it. So the only difference in the heat source now is there's two pipes instead of one pipe to connect. I think that's okay. I think we can cope with that, you know, it's just doubling it. And the one advantage of our heat source is it's just got water and glycol in it. It's not gas. There's lots of regulations to do with gas. You need to be gas safe registered. You need to make sure that we're following lots of quite right health and safety regulations. Installing the heat pump doesn't have quite so much there because it's a benign fluid we're connecting to. The rest of the circuit, it's often radiators in the wall. Yes, slightly different radiators because we're working at different flow temperatures. But again, if we design that correctly, then we just need to work with our installer so we get the right radiator. That's what we are doing all the time. You know, we're working with people that are used to fitting boilers and helping them to make sure that we get the right radiators, we get the right copper pipework going around the building and the right pumps. And then the only thing that changes is instead of a Y plan, we go to something that's called a W plan, and the valve just changes. So instead of having a mid-position valve that allows us to do heating and hot water simultaneously, with a heat pump, we'll either do heating or we'll do hot water. But effectively, it's the same. So if we can start to engage with these installers and get them on board, and the Kenza way of doing this isn't everyone now needs to become a specialist installer. Come and work with us at Kenza Contracting. We'll do the design. We'll get all the difficult bits put in. What I need your team of guys to do is go in these 273 flats, fit 6 radiators in a wall, put a heat pump and put a hot water cylinder, and we'll do all the MCS. We'll commission it for you. That seems pretty easy. When you speak to these people on site, they all tell me, that's actually just as easy as fitting as a gas boiler. Yeah, because there's nothing to it. And that's what you're left with. You're left with a cupboard that has a white box. The bottom of it is the Kenza shoebox heat pump. Above it is a hot water cylinder. That hot water cylinder is no different to any other unvented hot water cylinder that you connect on a gas boiler. Yeah, it's got a slightly larger coil in it, but from an installer point of view, it's the same flow and return connection. We have radiators with TRVs on them. We have dial thermostats, programmable room thermostats, timers. You know, it can all be done relatively easily. Where do we need to get to with the supply chain and the internal installation? The gas boiler installer today needs to know he's also a heat pump installer. He just doesn't quite know it yet. And we need to take them on a journey. And part of that is, again, having the certainty of installs. You know, it will cost a bit of time if you want to send your installers on a training course. And at the moment, we're still installing 1.6 million gas boilers a year. So, you know, these guys have got a business, it's working, they've been very successful, taking time off the road to retrain. So that's why we're trying to do something a little bit different. If Kenza Contracting can go out there, do a lot of that business development work, find projects, then we can bring in subcontractors to work alongside us. We provide on-site, on-the-job training. You know, sometimes it's very difficult for you to go, right, I'm going to send all my engineers to that classroom and they're going to be away for a week. So we will have our project managers on site training up those installation teams and actually showing them that this isn't that difficult. yeah, there's a couple of different things you need to know about, but let's just do it. And once you have got a team of engineers that have going through several blocks of flats, which is the case study I'll show you in a minute, they actually then become, we can do this, and then some of them will take the next step to become an MCS accredited installer themselves, and hopefully help to try and plug some more of those gaps so we can install it at scale. But there's different opportunities. You know, we are trying to reach out to the market in many ways. We're obviously a manufacturer, so people can come to us, just buy a heat pump, MCS accredited installer, get the training from Kenza, and we can help them that way. If there's small volume installs, they want a little bit more support, we've got an MCS umbrella scheme that can help them do that. And then obviously in these large volume installs, those same contractors can come and work as a specialist subcontractor to Kenza. We can help them, and some of those companies are now actually competitors to Kenza. You know, that seems a crazy thing that we want competitors to Kenza, but if there's other companies out there doing what we are doing, we must be doing something right, and there must be a market for everyone to take forward. So just before I finish, I'm hoping there's a case study in here. I don't know if anyone saw it as we click through. The case study has disappeared. Not to worry, I will just talk about the case study. Case study was with Thurrock Council, 273 flats, and they were replacing electric night storage heaters with ground source heat pumps. It's one of the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund projects that David was mentioning. They'd already done all the cavity wall insulation. They've sort of done everything they could do to old 1960s tower blocks. So we went in. It was a long old project. You know, it took us 2 years to just get to the point where the project existed. We did all the design, won it by a competitive tender, and then when we were on site, we did exactly what I've told you we did. We brought in the specialist drilling contractor who drilled the holes to our design and specification. We made sure that they were all done correctly, they're all drilled in the correct place, they're done to the correct depth, but it's that specialist that we used. We then used a local company to dig the trenches, a company that had never ever before done a ground source heat pump installation. But they just had to dig the trenches, and that's the bit that they were pretty good at. We then used the company to come and put the pipework in, a company, a subcontractor we worked with before, but again, using his skills and experience to put the pipework in. And then all the work inside the properties, we worked with a traditional M&E installer. They hadn't done heat pumps before, and there was 273 flats we had to do. But what they are very good at doing is installing gas boilers at scale for other social housing clients. So we just worked with them and said, if you can do 273 flats with gas boilers, you can do 273 flats with ground source heat pumps, because we are here to hold your hand the whole way through. And we got them running at 24 flats a week, which 24 flats a week in tower blocks is very quick. And we managed to complete that whole project within a year. So it can be done. There's projects out there that exist. And I think my conclusion slide, I think I saw that. Is it upstairs? Oh yeah, there is a case study upstairs actually, and there's a little video on it up there. So yeah, so it was a deliberate leave it out the presentation, and you must go upstairs and have a look at the wall on the back wall. You know, it's big. You know, David's made it clear. You know, this is a massive challenge in front of us, and we could all bury our head in the sand and not do it. But I genuinely think there's an opportunity for us here to do it. I wouldn't be at Kenza if I didn't think there's a big opportunity for heat pumps as part of the solution. We need to start now. You know, I don't know how many conversations I have with people, you know, especially in the new build sector, where the ban doesn't come in until 2025. So, you know, we'll wait till 2025. Trouble with waiting until 2025 is the houses we build next year, which will be about 200,000, are a retrofit problem that we've already got. So we need to start now, and we need to get out there. You know, the social housing providers are really leading the way. You know, there's a lot of cracking projects out there. And we need to do more. You know, the next big vision is we do this from a Kenza perspective. We do this at city scale, and you start engaging with the private homeowners. But that's clearly going to need government policy to try and grow it. Kenza, we've done 5,000. You know, just little old Kenza contracting, a company that started from nothing in 2012. We've now done over 5,000 of these. It's tried and tested technology. If we can do it, I think more and more companies out there can do it. There is an existing supply chain. We're trying to grow it as best we can, and it's great that we've got David and his organisations like that trying to train people up, and we are trying to do it in our little way as well. And you know, my big ask is it's the certainty of work. You know, everyone's talking about all these things, and we need to do it. We just need government policy to help us go in that right direction. But it's been it's been fun. I've never done a presentation where slides have been all over the place. So hopefully you've all enjoyed it, and hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into what we are doing at Kenza and how we think we can go further. And I look forward to the questions at the end. Thank you.
We'll find the green.
Well, Stuart, thank you very much, and well done for persevering with the IT. I think I would have melted at that point, but you did it really well. Lots of things there we want to pick on. That idea about thinking big and long-term policy is something I want to pick up on in the Q&A session. But I want to move on now to our third speaker, who is Nick Nailberg. Nick is the Managing Director of Earl and Callum Design and Build Limited. He's worked in design and contracting in London's residential refurbishment and extension sector for over 25 years. Nick specialises in energy-efficient upgrades and client-led residential design and build. And I should add, he's also a member of the Federation of Master Builders. So, Nick, welcome on board.
Hello, everyone. Right. Let's see what happens with the slides. No, the wrong way. Okay, great. We've got the first slide. So a little bit about us. We are a general builder and have been for many years now. Shied away from retrofit because of not wanting to deliver terrible mouldy houses for people, and we didn't have the confidence until we got involved with the Federation of Master Builders and went on the pilot retrofit coordinators course, which gave us the confidence. That's not in order. It gave us the confidence to start delivering retrofits, basically. So I get involved with these things to learn, really, and it's been great with this one, with David talking about what we're doing next. And I've been to a lot of these things where we talk about the problems and all the big numbers, and it's very nice to be kind of on the ground and trying to work out how we train people. We kind of thought, right, okay, well, we need to go to the colleges, and then the people aren't at the colleges because the engagement isn't there. Like you say, there are lots of other jobs to do, and our industry has quite a bad reputation for sexism, racism, and being a cold, dusty, rubbish environment to work in. So it's kind of inspired me to start doing the retrofit, learning hands-on how to get involved with all the various different measures that we're doing, and also working out how to engage people. So through the Federation of Master Builders, I've become and the CITB, I've become a construction ambassador, going to schools and colleges and really kind of getting to grips and learning about our own industry and our kind of, I guess that I'm a bit of a grumpy old builder in some degrees, with quite a closed mind, or have been. And over the last few years, getting involved and working out how we can actually start. Why would someone want to come into our business with all of these kind of issues that are there? And so I've got really kind of heavily involved and learnt about the issues. So the kind of the years of neglect that everyone's been pushed towards the universities. It used to be a kind of proud thing to be a trades person, and then it became you've got to go to university. Parents are pushing their children away from trades. Teachers, even in schools that we go and do talks in sometimes, using construction as a threat. If you don't study, you'll end up being a builder. And so it's been really quite interesting to go through all this process. And at the same time as doing this, we're now on our 6th whole house retrofit. And so we started off doing external wall insulation, again, through with David, meeting the right people and having the confidence to engage the right subcontractors to do the work and to learn with them, and also to create. So this is the kind of the push out there, knowing that there's a huge skills issue in the industry, full stop, and then the added work that's involved in doing all the retrofit, and also the skill level for the retrofit. Like I say, if I say to people, if you fit a kitchen badly and it kind of you have a wonky door in a few years, you can fix it. If you put external wall insulation on your house and don't do it properly, in a few years it wrecks your house and your house has got a big problem. So it's really, really important to make sure that the skill level on, through the whole process, and especially to the delivery, is up there. So what have we got here? Yeah, so with all these different initiatives, and we've been getting involved with more and more, and helping our business to value our work and to also charge the right price for things so that we're able to invest in training. I think that's kind of a major thing that's helped us to kind of control the business in a way and create a business that is good, attractive for people to come and work. So again, we've now started. We were spoilt for years. We've had all of these kind of older. What did you say they were? We're falling off the edge, aren't we? The older workforce that was, went through proper training, proper, they did proper apprenticeships. The carpenter Lee that I, pick on all the time, he did a 4-year carpentry apprenticeship, and he's just so skilled and knowledgeable, and the work that he produces is just, we didn't realise just how spoilt we were until he retired. And then we're like, well, who's going to do the work? And all through the process of us becoming grumpy old builders because of the lack of skills. So we're getting our business is such that we don't make tons of money, but we do okay. But as soon as you're starting to pay people who aren't skilled to cause problems, and then you're putting them right because your company is delivering a certain quality of a project to a client, that then starts eating into and causing real problems within the business. So it's been really nice to have the help from companies like David's, the CITB and the Master Builders to allow us to start training people. We've got an apprentice now, and we're creating an environment within our business where we've got the work now, so we've got more work than we could take on, but we don't have the people to deliver it, but it's enabling us to start training the people. And I was very excited about David's talk, because that's the next thing, isn't it? It's what we need to do. And I've been to a lot of these talks where we're talking about this massive problem and what do we do? And I'm there with my micro business going, well, we've done one, okay, we've done two, and it would be really nice to be able to create a business that attracts people and can pay people well, can train people, can give people a kind of good livelihood, and kind of create a. That was the second slide. There you go. Right. So I guess we've also become designers. We've gone design and build. And I was thinking about this. I was talking to my business partner, and sort of one of the things that he was saying, oh, you spend a lot of time going to schools and colleges and it doesn't earn us money. And I'm saying, well, I didn't really sort of choose to do that. I'm doing that because we've got a problem that we need to try and work out to solve. And I think, again, I didn't really want to do the design, to be honest. It was an issue that competitive tendering was causing us to lose out in projects because we were slightly more expensive than other people because we were investing. And it meant that we need, by taking control of the process, So we start off with the customer and then say, right, here's a design to your budget. And even now we're starting to do whole house plans, which means the budget can be kind of broken down into phases. So a customer, has X amount of money at the moment, or does one bit to the house, and then maybe the next owner of the house does the next bit. But we're now, rather than trying to kind of promise that you can do everything for whatever money you have, it's more saying, okay, let's design it to a budget. And again, I was supposed to do a panel discussion with David. It's a couple of years now, wasn't it? And I was sitting next. Does anyone know Justin Beer, Architects? Yeah. So I was sitting next. Justin Beer is like, he's a sort of retrofit god, basically, isn't he? And it was my first panel discussion. I was sitting next to him, and whoever was presenting said, so Nick, how do you deal with the issue of communication and making sure that the process is kind of worked out? And I got hot under the collar because I was sitting next to a very good retrofit architect, and my answer was, we've taken control of the process, and so we're now doing the design so that we can make sure that the client's budget is managed and we've got the right money to deliver the quality product, because it takes time to deliver quality. And if you've gone through a competitive tendering, it's our whole industry is based on this, isn't it? You give the price that gets you the job, and then you work out how to make money out of the job. And the kind of pre-construction stuff is all about controlling the information so that you keep the initial price rather than it going up during the job. So it's so in this thing I was thinking, well, he might punch me or something, and he said, no, Nick's right. You always do negotiated tenders, because in a negotiated tender you're all sensibly talking about what you can do with the right sort of money, and therefore within the price is the money to do the job and to train people. And so I think that's a kind of big thing there. So yeah, I guess what I've been doing is trying to learn and have a kind of progressive business, and to try and get rid of a lot of the nonsense in the industry from kind of the trade side and the design side. Thank you.
Nick, thank you very much. It's great to have your personal journey on this and at the co-face of actually putting it into practice. I think we're just going to arrange a stage now for a Q&A session. So shortly, speakers will go up on stage, and then we'll do the Q&A. Thank you. Okay, well, it's great. We've got everyone lined up for the Q&A session. So I think one of the things I picked up on, and it's like you mentioned, Stuart, about this need for certainty in the retrofit market. And there has been, I would argue, an absence of long-term policy. What do you think this is going to look like, this need for a long-term policy? Is it the government needs to step up, or is it the industry, or is it both? I'm quite curious to know your thoughts on this.
I think part of it for me is definitely the government stepping up. Certainly with what we are trying to do at Kenza is obviously get heating systems out there and doing them at scale. And at the moment, it all seems to be left to individual consumer choice. You end up with a lot of pepper potting everywhere. And the solution that we're obviously advocating to let's do this at scale works if we can do that at scale. If people as individual homeowners decide, well, I'm going to get rid of my gas boiler. I want to do my bit for the environment and do my bit for my grandchildren and all that lovely stuff. Most of them probably can't afford to do a ground source heat pump at the moment. You know, it's a lot of money. You have to put the infrastructure in yourself. So therefore, the next best thing for them to do is put an air source heat pump in. I'm not here to knock air source heat pumps. They've paid my wages many years as well over the past 20 years. But that might not be the best choice for us as the UK. Because in that, they will consume more electricity on the coldest day of the year. If we have everyone that's consuming more electricity on the coldest day of the year, we need to invest in more power stations. So are those power stations going to be lots of wind turbines everywhere, lots of solar panels, nuclear, you know? So if we sat down and looked at the UK as a whole, there might well be areas where we go, that is not the right solution for ground source heat pumps. You know, the technology is not going to be great there because of the ground conditions or whatever. So let's go for air source heat pumps there. Maybe over here, it's a really dense city, so actually that makes more sense for a centralised solution. And we can have central energy plants, energy from waste and all those things. But over here, this part makes sense for individual heat pumps linked to an ambient network. So I think we need to be thinking holistically, and that needs to be government policy, because I think if we don't, we will end up with everyone doing their own thing, and in 5 or 10 years' time, we won't have achieved anything. I think what the government, you know, clearly there's not a lot of money at the moment, and you know, we've got some funding schemes like Social Housing Decarb Fund. We used to have the Renewable Heat Incentive. The Renewable Heat Incentive was a good thing. If you had a project that met the criteria, you got the funding. Social Housing Decarb Fund, it's a competition. My experience of the Social Housing Decarb Fund is those authorities that are very good at entering competitions will tend to win the money. But as David said, not all of that money is going to get spent. You know, we're well aware that there's projects where, well, if we put a big, ambitious programme together, so I think the government need to come and chat to industry and work with us to come up with the best funding mechanisms to kickstart some of that. But also, there is private finance out there. You know, there's companies who want to do it. So I think the government have to help with us and give us a steer with some policy. I think they could do with some kickstart funding, but I think we as the industry can take the ideas to them.
Just thinking, Nick, from your point of view, as a small business, we've had sort of the Green Deal, the Green Homes Grant Scheme. Are you looking for some longer-term view, certainty from your end?
I don't know, there seems to be we looked into getting PAS 2035 registered, and it was quite a lot of money, and I'm quite pleased as a business that we didn't actually get to that point. But our market is the can-pay market, so we don't need that to actually...
So these are the people who are interested in retrofitting their home, which does worry me about the wider population, particularly owner-occupiers who don't have very much money. I don't know, David, how are we going to reach out to those people who don't have the money to upgrade their properties in the owner-occupied sector?
Well, if they don't have the money, I mean, there is funding through various government schemes for those who can't afford to do this themselves. A lot of it, and it will be an increasing theme, I think, over the next few years, of local authority-led programmes and projects that doesn't do exactly that. I have to say I don't agree that there's a lack of certainty and funding. What there is a lack of joined-up thinking between government departments, let alone government and industry. You're right about that. There needs to be far more of that sort of real-world planning. You know, they magic a SHDF programme out of thin air and then say we're going to have, 36,000 heat pumps, and without anyone actually who got 36,000 heat pumps, and do they physically exist or not? And we're going to have them all installed within 2 years. But I mean, there's the issue around, we're here to talk about skills, is, you know, I've not, in 10 years of working in this sector, whilst I'm funded by the Department for Education, believe it or not, because we bid and win it, I've never had a conversation with anyone from the Department for Education about retrofit. And there's no one there who wants to talk about it. And yet, it's a government priority to deliver net zero. So, and don't get me started on whatever DCLG, MHCLG, levelling up. I mean, you know, they funded us to deliver 2 social value programmes in 2022, last year, which were meant to be the precursor to follow on big schemes, and we did a great job, and then they chopped it. So there's crazy policy, but it's your money, you know, and perhaps they don't feel at the minute they can invest it wisely enough. which is where industry sorting itself out would be great.
Yeah.
To make it more investable. But I mean, I think there's plenty of, personally, I think there is certainty. SHDF, they've made almost a cross-party consensus to £8 billion nominally over 8 years. So how much more certainty do we want than that? I don't think you'll ever get it.
Okay, so before I open up to the floor, the one thing I'm quite interested in asking about is upskilling, because we are talking about upskilling and getting people into the industry. The issue about standards seems to be very much the PAS 2035. The Trustmark's been talking about License Plus. It's very confusing, I think, for homeowners thinking about what is the right standard, and actually, how do we get more tradespeople, because builders are in people's homes, how do we get them to actually step up and see the opportunities?
Is that to me? Okay. PAS 2035 is a really, really good standard, and Nick knows it is a really good standard. The best thing about PAS 2035 is it's exactly what you already do.
Yeah.
See, good businesses, good construction businesses do things that way anyway. It's there to get the cowboys out and to avoid the terrible practices that we had last decade, in which, by the way, if you drive around your local council estate, as I do every day, you'll see with your own eyes, without even necessarily a trained eye, you'll see it in patches of moisture in the walls, and you'll see it around corners, junctions and edges of windows, and it's bloody obvious that it's bad work. That's why it's there. So now what we shouldn't be doing is putting barriers in the way of great companies like Nick's doing more and embracing the opportunity more and scaling more. And they should be, government really needs to support those SMEs to do that. And that's why I was so frustrated about the Community Renewal Fund projects that came and then went. We were able to provide direct business support to cover the full cost of all those accreditation for local firms who wanted to make that leap. And we should be doing more of that, and less of a focus at the minute as it being a bureaucratic exercise that adds no value. The other side, just a very quick point, the other side of that is, what's the point in having a standard if it's not policed?
Yeah, okay.
Pointless. It is a paper-based exercise if it's that. So if we have a quality assurance regime that's there to say, no, that's not good enough, and go back and do it again, and no, you're not getting your funding, great, but it's not happening in practice. So you've got to...
Nick, you're at the co-phase. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Again, we've learned all this. It's been really interesting to kind of the place where we are at the moment, where many years of, like you say, all these kind of we can't make the building worse by insulating it, and all of these kind of initiatives that have just slapped insulation on. Contractors have made lots of money by bish bash boshing, and it's just been terrible for the industry and kind of made everyone scared of doing it. And that's what's driven all of this. It's like I'm always talking about the fact that as a developer, the government make you take out an insurance policy for if you disappear and your work's bad. That's driven by developers being terrible and just employing terrible cheap people, and so the government has to kind of police that by saying, well, you need an insurance policy to do that. It's where people are sort of coming to me and saying, well, we want to make sure you do this and you do that, and well, I want you to work under this contract and to retain money from you. And I'm like, hang on a minute, that's all designed for all the bad people that, why are you trying to penalise me for delivering a good job to you by getting me to go through this process that's all driven by the crap in our industry? I want to be different from that. I want to deliver a quality product and learn and understand how to deliver that, and also how to train people to kind of grow our business to do that. In fact, our business has shrunk because of this, because we want to produce quality, and because the people aren't there who are engaged and the companies who are kind of driving quality, and the whole industry is, this whole sort of race to the bottom of, you get the job if you're the cheapest. It's infuriating, really.
Well, that's probably a good point to open it up to the floor about actually raising standards in the building industry, attracting more people into this sector, which has only got to grow in the coming years, and it needs to grow urgently if we're going to transform our existing building stock. So any questions from the floor? Right, okay, 3 hands gone up. I'll take the lady first.
Mine's for Stuart. Oh, sorry, which lady?
Yes, there's a...
I might not need it, I've got quite a loud voice. Thank you, all three of you. That was really, really interesting. On the heat pumps, the biggest sort of reluctance from our clients when we try and steer them towards heat pumps is they have concerns over their maintenance and whether or not there's skilled people to maintain them properly and how long they're going to last, and also if they're sort of in-house asset managers or the residents themselves are going to be able to use the heat pumps. It's all new and scary to them. And obviously we've heard about the skill shortages in this talk. So is that a valid concern, would you say? And do you train as well in sort of maintenance?
Yep. So that's questions I'm dealing with day in, day out. So in terms of the maintenance, you know, in our ideal world, I guess a lot of the clients that we would try and work with on the, you know, the large scale projects, certainly in the social housing sector, we would try and work already with their in-house or preferred maintenance contractors and their preferred DLO partners to actually get them to work alongside us to do the install. So we would still take full responsibility. If this doesn't work, it's still Ken's fault. But we'd try and work with them and get them involved and engaged in the installation so that then we can take them on the journey to do the service and the maintenance after that, with us providing the training and making sure that they've got access to our call centre. What we're finding, unfortunately, is that some local authorities and housing associations don't necessarily have great in-house teams, or they don't have great preferred contractors, so that we then are now bringing in our preferred contractors, and we are now developing our own servicing and maintenance plans, which is perhaps not the long-term vision we had, because our longer-term vision is to try and have lots of people in local areas all around the country who are getting skilled up, and I still think that's the best way forward. But so what we are now having to try and do is us find the good local installers and us then take on board the service and the maintenance. Even though if you design a system correctly, install it correctly, a ground source heat pump doesn't require the maintenance. You know, a gas boiler needs to maintain once a year to make sure it's, you know, gas safe registered. When you're a landlord, you know, heat pumps do not have the same requirements, but local authorities and housing associations want to do that, and therefore there's a service we are trying to service that. So I think these are valid concerns. I think there is that fear of, will it work in my residence home? You know, again, I've been in this heat pump industry many years, and a lot of heat pumps are out there. They have really complicated controllers. You know, I've worked for many manufacturers, and I was supposed to be the product manager who knew it all, and I had to take the 50-page manual to site to try and work out how all these parameters have been changed by a resident. What Ken's was trying to do is that's an off-the-shelf control system. So, you know, what would you normally install, Mr. Housing Association or Mrs. Council, for your properties? Well, we would normally install a Honeywell that's a dial thermostat, this code, this twin. We will do exactly the same for the heat pump, so that then when we can engage with the local service and maintenance people, when they turn up on site, they don't immediately open a cupboard and go, oh, there's a heat pump in there, and there's some crazy, they go, oh, that control I can deal with. If they've been in our training courses and engaged with us, what we always say to them, the biggest thing we say in the training course is, when you go there and you don't know what you do, this is the telephone number, this is the telephone number, this is the telephone number. Because we've had, unfortunately, circumstances where it's taken about a month for the problem to come to us, and by the time the problems come to us a month later, you can imagine that people aren't too happy with us as Kenza. But actually, what was the problem? The problem was the heating system pressure had dropped. Now, if that had been a gas boiler, what would that maintenance engineer have done? The first thing they would have done is they would probably looked at the pressure gauge and gone, oh, that's sitting at half a bar. That needs to be 1.5 bar. Let me connect the filling loop. Let me top it up. It's magically worked. Heat pump, no idea. Oh, it's just a heating system. It's got a pressure gauge. So we need to engage more. We need to educate more. We need to work with the local installers. And you know, welcome the opportunity to speak to your clients, just to show them that it can be done, and also try and engage with their supply chain. You know, I think hopefully one of the messages coming out from me is we're not magically going to go, well, thanks all you guys for installing all these gas boilers, but now we've got all these magic. It's one and the same people, and these guys that are doing the service and maintenance, these will do the service and maintenance, and we've just got to take them with us. But yeah, loads of training, free of charge training. Let's chat to these people.
Yeah, that customer care is really important, I think, actually.
Yeah.
I'll still ask. Sorry, it was a specific question for David, but I think, Stu, you've just touched upon the point somewhat, so it might be interesting to expand on it. You mentioned councils, so local authorities and housing associations, and I was just thinking to what level, David, in your academy you acknowledge that they're under-resourced and they're under-skilled in this area.
Do you work for a local authority?
I don't know, but because I'm an architect in the field, we addressed a similar concern with public practice, wherein you have architects embedded as associates within local authorities in order to try and resolve that issue, which has been successful to some extent, but how is it going to be resolved on this scale?
Well, we do a huge amount of work around that. So there's a long list of stuff we've done. I didn't go through it all. This year, actually, we've worked with every local authority in the Midlands. Been funded by one of the Net Zero hubs to do it. And we were doing what was called the PAS health check. So it's working with the teams there to ensure that the multi-million pound programmes that they were funding were getting close to complying with PAS. I mean, complying in full with PAS was a tall order, but we were pretty horrified. We were horrified on two counts, really. One, the extent to which they weren't anywhere near compliant. Even some things that had been on the tally and in the news as being great, which was quite scary. And the other thing was exactly the point you just made. You know, the people that we're engaging with were environmental health officers, or our favourite one was a rat catcher. So now there was a bit of a talent trend. There used to be in local authorities some very good energy efficiency teams or energy teams, and they all seemed to leave about a decade ago when the last period of famine came about, and a lot of those people went into the private sector and have never come back. That continues to this day with certain consultancies and stuff. So there's a huge amount to do there. We are going to address it directly. So we've figured out that there's a big problem, and just bits of coaching and support aren't enough. There's got to be something really systematic to help them, because they've not been responsible for it for about 10 years, and their funding keeps getting cut in half. So there's a lot to do there.
Brilliant. Thank you. The gentleman behind.
Moving back. Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Buchanan. I'm a director at Archeo Architects. I wanted to ask a question. Thank you for a fascinating presentation as all. I wanted to ask a question about, I guess you might call it piecemeal retrofit. Nick, you sort of touched on that. We've just done a project in the Becontree estate, writing a retrofit guide, which is upstairs if anyone's interested. What that was really about was looking at barriers for normal people to retrofit their homes. The Becontree estate is 29,000 homes. 80% of them are one of three types. There's a lot of repetition, so lots of opportunities there. One of the things that we found was that the cost of a whole house retrofit was about 70k, quite small houses, and that was kind of beyond what most people have as savings. Let's be honest, certainly me. What we did find was that people were prepared to spend sort of 3 to 6k, and that could get them probably some underfloor insulation, some draft proofing. It didn't probably get them to an air source heat pump. But it made a difference on energy consumption. It certainly made a difference on comfort. So I think my question is, hearing what's been said about sort of cowboy trades, and there's been lots of problems in the Becontree with that actually. How do you think, once you've started to develop, in a way, the subcontractor skills that can deliver some of those piecemeal retrofit pieces to people? How do you think you can start to bring those to market in a reliable way, I suppose?
Nick, do you want to take that one?
If we could just solve that quickly.
Yeah. God, it's Yeah, that's a very tricky one, isn't it? Again, you're it's so difficult design-wise, isn't it, to pick a very small bit and to do that and for it not to have unintended consequences. And I guess my knowledge and experience is all about a whole house retrofit and to try and use all of the bits to make sure that doesn't happen and to I guess to advise people where they're spending their budget in a way to just, to, like you say, there are some sort of small things that you can do that will work well. I don't know, it really, when you're getting that small again, because we are going into people's houses and sort of insulating under their floors, for example, that's like doing one measure. And it's quite interesting to see all the different variants of prices that they've got from people, from chicken wire and loft insulation, right the way through to, I guess, what we're proposing is a proper vapor control layer and preferably a breathable insulation and an air tightness layer. And it's quite a huge difference, isn't it, between the way it actually works and the skill level that's needed to install it, isn't it? So I'm with you totally that it's something that
I suppose it's a
yeah.
challenge because
It's
I think if we want to have certainly impact in terms of reaching net zero, we've got to sort of take opportunities where they come. I think it'll be a bell curve, won't it, in terms of impact. So just
Dave, do you want to come in on that point?
Couldn't agree with you more. Measures-based retrofit, doing individual things, what the government used to fund is mad. It doesn't get you anywhere near net zero. What we train retrofit coordinators to do is develop something called a medium-term retrofit plan or a retrofit plan. We must have trained you.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do, whole house plans.
Yeah. Now, a whole house retrofit does not mean you have to do the whole house at once. It means you have to have the skills and judgment to know which bits to do first, and then bundle it into packages. Because, as you say, hardly anyone has £70,000 to do it, and it shouldn't cost that, but it can do. You've got to be able to say, okay, well, we've only got £7,000 now. There are life events and things in the future where that money might become available. So you have like a service plan for the house, an upgrade plan, and that's exactly what coordinators do.
yeah.
And we've developed software that allows you to create really great retrofit plans. And then the homeowner's got Third now is a company you might want to take a look at. They do a really good job in an owner-occupier space around good whole house planning over a period of time.
I'm conscious we've run out of time, but has anyone got a burning question? Or I'll take one or two. Lady at the back.
What nobody seems to have really mentioned is what technical colleges are doing. It seems to me that there's a massive place for technical colleges to develop, so you have apprenticeships where people go to college 1 day a week and, and so on. I mean, it seems to me that that's where we need money, and there are some good things being done, I think, in Ealing and also in Enfield. Are you aware of those at all, David?
I've gone back to a local college, so they have a Green Skills Academy, which
Yeah.
is being funded by the Mayor of London, so
Yeah.
there are initiatives.
Is that, which one's that? Is that the...
That's Cornell in Haringey.
Haringey.
In Tottenham.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that one in Enfield as well.
I would have thought, and I really get that parents don't want to encourage their young people to go into the construction industry. It does need to pull its socks up a bit, really.
Yeah.
Well,
Unfortunately, the whole pattern of taking the lowest tender, then prices being, very squeezed, and and so on, and the way that the labour is organised is not going to be attractive, and certainly parents won't want to. If the construction industry presented itself, or there was funding for decent you know, irreputable technical colleges. I don't know. They seem to have disappeared.
Yeah. So
from
the
what I've
technical
seen.
colleges, and I think colleges of further education are so critical because they're underfunded. I mean, what's your experience on this panel?
I guess limited experience, but Kenza, obviously we're based down in the southwest. We have got a training facility in Exeter College. So it's got a working Kenza heat pump. I think we've got a couple of heat pumps in there. Not the full ground array, but by having a tank of cold water and a tank of hot water, we can basically mimic the ground array. So we as Kenza can also take some of our customers there and use the college, but the college are also using it to train some of their students. In an ideal world, what I'd like to do at Kenza would be, can we replicate that at every college around the UK? And I'm pretty sure, you know, our shareholders would like to do that as well, but there's a money thing there.
Well, I mean, it's government, isn't it, that needs to invest, and that's where it's really letting young people down at the moment, I would have thought. Really.
With the Exeter College that you mentioned, because I know they've been very good at reaching out to the local community and local employers, and they're doing as much as they can there, and I think that's a really good example for college. But we do need more funding, I think, in colleges of further education to actually boost the image of our industry as well. It's not the last resort, but somewhere you want to go to.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly because we do a lot of work with local authorities, you know, we're hoping to start a project up in Scotland soon on a new build site that's Fife Council. There's a technical college, and so we're already having a little chat there about, you know, as part of the social
Scotland
value.
seems to be getting its act together.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. We've really run out of time, and I think we could go on further. But can I just say, I think we've had 3 excellent presentations this evening, giving us a different perspective on the challenge that we're facing in getting retrofit off the ground. So can we just give our speakers a round of applause, please?